Republican strategist Kenneth Vecchio and Spencer Critchley, Democratic strategist and managing partner of Boots Road Group. Thank you both so much for being here. Ken, let's start with you here. Listen, I find myself almost scratching my head that we're even sitting here and talking about this tonight.
Look, folded like a cheap rain suit, no, I don't think it'll be folded like a cheap rain suit. This thing is so far blown out of proportion. I mean, calling things Sharpiegate in and of itself is absurd. But let's get real here. The President of the United States was doing something in the best interest of his constituents, which means any people from any state in the country. He truly believed that the storm was going to hit Alabama. He had good advice coming from top professionals that were telling him that, and he stuck with it. Neil Jacobs, the guy who's the head of the NOAA, he said himself that this is a very imprecise science, and it's very difficult to tell where something's going to hit, and it's better to be safe than sorry. So Wilbur Ross, on top of it, if he threatened to fire somebody, it's threatening to fire somebody because they were insubordinate to their superiors, not just Donald Trump, but other superiors. There was a good faith belief that it was going to hit Alabama, and why not let the people realize that?
Spencer, let's bring you in here. What does it say to you, though, that Wilbur Ross, Commerce Secretary, reportedly got on the horn, he called the acting NOAA administrator to effectively have him back the president's claim that Alabama would most likely be hit harder than expected? Was it appropriate for Ross to intervene?
Absolutely not. And this points to what's actually become very serious about this story. We're used to President Trump making himself ridiculous through his incredible insecurity. But what we're talking about here is not just individual lies, which he provides a steady stream of, but the actual assault on truth itself. And that's, I think, the far more serious issue here. Science matters. This country was founded on the principles of the Enlightenment, which means reason and science. And unfortunately, where we are now, and to some extent this is true on both sides of the political spectrum, is we have a culture that's all too willing to believe in things that they just want to be true or they feel in their guts are true. Like President Trump apparently felt this was true, and so therefore why not if that's what he felt was true? He was just plain wrong. Science matters, reason matters. It's at the foundation of democracy, and that's where the story gets serious.
This is the problem. You say that that's science. When scientists disagree, we all have to be smart enough to know that we don't know everything. I don't know which scientists were correct here, and there were a number of scientists that were telling Donald Trump that Alabama was going to get hit. Now there's a bunch of other scientists who are saying that it won't. Yes, there were. There was tons of them. I read myself.
4 days previously, he was just wrong. He was just wrong.
No.
And this is a further example of the problem of making science subjective, a matter of opinion, and choosing the facts you want to believe. This has become rampant, and it's ultimately destructive of democracy.
Unfortunately, science many times is a matter of opinion. Just look at the whole alleged global warming issue. Years ago, it was global warming. Now it's
by definition, science is not a matter of opinion.
No, by
climate change itself is a scientific consensus.
By practical definition,
this is another
science
example.
Is a matter of opinion because it constantly changes. What allegedly was true 25 years ago isn't true 15 years later, and isn't true 10 years after that was true 15 years after that. It's all a bunch of malarkey. We don't know necessarily what's the case until you have like 100% of scientists saying so.
Ken, very quickly, though.
If science was malarkey, you and I would not be able to talk over a satellite connection right now. We wouldn't have iPhones. We wouldn't have cars. We wouldn't have antibiotics. Science is science.
Look, let's get real here. I don't mean every technical matter. I don't mean every scientific matter. I mean lots of different matters that are in dispute, like whether or not Alabama was going to get hit with the hurricane.
All right, listen, Ken, very quickly.
It was not, and climate change is not in dispute by serious scientists either.
All right, back to Ken here. Okay, so listen, there are critics out there who say that Ross forced Jacobs to do what he did. I mean, we've seen the way he was kind of backpedaling in his announcement, and I mean, he was kind of thrown under the bus. I mean, what do you say? Well, you look at the way he reacted, and there are critics who say he was in an impossible position here, that he basically, the Birmingham Weather Service, the National Weather Service, they went against the president. Everybody's forced to eat crow at this point. And it goes back to, I think, what Spencer was saying, where, I mean, should the Commerce Secretary, a position, somebody in a position of that magnitude, be pouring pressure on to help the president save face?
Yes. Look, most basic principle of justice. proof beyond a reasonable doubt. We have no idea what the dynamics were that were going on among all these different top people. He's not the top person. He's not number one. He's number two with regard to that particular department, because number one is the president. So him as number two as the head of the Commerce Department, him standing up for what the president said because he was following the same data makes a lot of logical sense to me. And where people are insubordinate to superiors, well, sometimes their jobs are on the line. If this was a matter of fact, which I disagree with Spencer, that it was not a matter of fact. No, this is no dictatorship thing. At any time where somebody is insubordinate to superiors, they get fired. It happened with Barack Obama. It happened with George Bush. It happened with Bill Clinton. Well, I don't. You think that all of them are dictators? I don't think any of them are.
Not over matters of science. Never once happened in the Obama administration.
You keep saying this is science. It's your science.
All right, Spencer Critchley, Kendall Vecchio.
You're arguing science is subjective. This is my point.
Wrong.
All right, moving on. I promise I wouldn't say that. All right, coming up here on Stateside, search for victims.